I'm Gavin Blair, a freelance journalist from the UK. I'm going to talk today about the current situation regarding Britain's exit from the European Union, commonly known as Brexit. These negotiations have been going on for now, coming on 2 years, and the current sticking point is approval by the British Parliament. So, following these long, protracted and complex negotiations, a deal was brought from the EU to the British Parliament. There were then further delays from the end of 2017 until on January the 15th, there was a vote on whether or not to accept the deal that Prime Minister Theresa May had brought before the Houses of Parliament. That deal was defeated by 432 to 202 votes. That was in fact the largest defeat of a sitting government in the history of the UK's Parliament. Following that, Theresa May went back to the EU to attempt to negotiate what she described as better terms. The EU had already stated that the deal on the table was the best on offer and there would be no changes. But having suffered such a resounding defeat, she was effectively left no option but to try to do something, to try to find some terms that could convince the British Parliament to pass this deal. It didn't work, to put it simply. She came back and there was another defeat. This time she was defeated by a smaller margin, but still 130 votes, still a huge defeat for a sitting government. This carried on then into March. There were a series of votes in the House, which can only have been described as chaotic, the whole situation in Parliament. There were ministers of the cabinet itself voting against the deal. Since the beginning of the year, there have been numerous resignations from the two main parties, the Conservative Party of government and the Labour Party, from their parties over the Brexit issue. A small group of them have actually joined together in a new party that is at the moment being called the Independent Group. One of the main sticking points of the negotiations that have been going on is the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. It's a fairly complex issue to begin with. But Ireland was divided between the south of Ireland and the so-called 6 counties of the north of Ireland early to mid 20th century. And there were numerous problems with that and an ongoing terrorist campaign, so-called Troubles, which were brought to an end around 20 years ago. And there has been peace since. One of the main concerns is that a hard border, what's known as a hard border, at the moment that border is open between the two countries, you can drive across easily. Though of course if Britain does end up leaving the European Union with no deal, the so-called no deal Brexit, with nothing agreed, then there will have to be some form of border there, because the customs on both sides will be different. The laws, the trade laws will be different between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Then on March the 14th, the UK Parliament voted for a delay in Brexit. They were due to leave on March the 29th, and with just about 2 weeks left to go, Parliament at least finally united on one thing, that Brexit could not be carried out in time and they would have to be delayed. Has for now been delayed until June, though this may go on later. It looks like Brexit will still happen, even though a majority of the population is now against Brexit, despite a majority of the population having voted for Brexit at the time. I think a lot of people, having seen the mess that has ensued and realised that there doesn't appear to be a good scenario for the UK, have now changed their minds, and a majority are now in favour of staying in the European Union. However, the government insists that it will stick by the referendum of June 2016 and will not go back to a so-called people's vote, a second referendum. The likely impacts of Brexit. The predictions are almost unanimously negative. All of them are predicting a fall in GDP, in prosperity for Britain once it leaves the EU. If it leaves with a so-called no deal, with no terms, that impact is expected to be even worse. That's the worst case scenario. But even with a deal, prosperity is expected to fall. And companies are almost certainly going to suffer if they have to pay extra tariffs, or rather their customers at the other end will have to pay the extra tariffs when they export to Europe. A number of international companies which have invested in the UK are talking about moving headquarters. Some have already begun to do so, or reduce their operations. Nissan this year announced that it will no longer build the X-Trail SUV in Sunderland as was planned, and has said it will bring production back to Japan. This is expected to have a very severe effect on that local area. Honda has also said it will close its Swindon plant in 2021. Toyota, meanwhile, has warned that it could end UK production in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Estimations have come in that the total cost to Japanese car makers in the UK in the event of a Brexit could be $1 billion. And it's not just the car industry. There are other companies, including Sony and Panasonic, are considering changes to their operations in the UK in the event of a Brexit. A Japanese pharmaceutical company, Shionogi, has already announced that it will move its European headquarters from London to Amsterdam if Brexit takes place. And this is almost certainly won't be the last we hear of such companies. And of course, it's not just Japanese companies. Britain's a target for investment from around the world, and other companies are also considering their position, including, of course, the City of London, a huge financial centre, one of the global financial centres. One of the reasons it has become so strong is easy access to Europe. If that changes, there will certainly be companies reconsidering their position now. It appears that in the final analysis, Brexit sets to be to Britain the worst self-inflicted damage for any major industrial nation on itself in living memory.